Hi again, everyone, and welcome to Badger Breakdown. I'm Mike Lucas. I'm joined by the voice of the Badgers, Matt Lepay. Matt, we've been around a lot of teams coming off Rose Bowls, but the expectation level this year seems higher than norm.
It's amazing. About the end of June was when the expectations started to go up, right? When Russell Wilson,
really did.
Yeah, when Russell Wilson's announcement that he was going to come to Wisconsin. I think people thought they were going to be pretty good, but there was the quarterback question that a lot of folks think has been answered. So now,
Was this good?
Yeah, it's a good question. It makes me nervous, to be real honest with you, because the four championships that we have seen here in the last 20 years have been in seasons where they weren't picked. To be first, to be second, in some cases, maybe every case, even to be third in the league. I think last year people thought they could be in the mix, but I don't know how many people picked Wisconsin to win it. So this is a little different territory. We have seen some high expectations in the past, and the season hasn't turned out what we thought. But to answer your question, it does make me a little bit nervous to see the expectations. But I guess if you're going to go that, as the cliche goes, if you're going to go from good to great, here's the time maybe to do it.
Russell Wilson obviously has been the focal point throughout this training camp. He has so many strengths both on and off the field. What stands out the most to you?
Poise, as cliche as that is. I think that, and it really struck me during media day when there was wave after wave of reporters coming up to him, and you could tell that he's been around it, both at North Carolina State and also playing minor league baseball. Just his easygoing nature, his a guy who, as they say, gets it, kind of knows the drill. Athletically, there are things that that we have seen him do just in practice that be hard pressed to name quarterbacks in the last 20 plus years, even longer, who have made the kind of plays that he's made. We'll see how that translates into a game, but I think just everything, how he's handled the hype and how he stayed really level, that probably above all else has stood out to me.
Wilson's had such a high profile that he's been able to overshadow the tailback rotation, which is saying a lot because this is as good of a rotation and maybe as deep of a rotation as I've been around.
Monty Ball, as good as he was down the stretch last year, watch him in camp, and you're right, there's been so much talk about Russell Wilson, and understandably so. You look at Monty Ball and James White, those two, who we saw a year ago, but Monty looks so much different and yet has kept the power.
Got a nice burst.
He really does, and James White continues to progress. I'm really eager to watch Melvin Gordon. Jeff Lewis looks like he's come back from his injury a little bit faster than what they thought might be the case. But a guy even like Melvin Gordon, I'm curious to see what he can do in front of 80,000 people. But of the group, Monty Ball, I think, is the one that made me turn my head and say, whoa, look at this guy. How much different he looks now to when we saw him in the Rose Bowl. And he was pretty good then, too.
Minus Karimi, minus Moffitt, minus Nagy. It's going to take a little bit. It's going to take some time for this offensive line to click to the extent that they were late last season. But it seems like the pieces to this puzzle are there. It's just a matter of putting them together.
The good news is Travis Frederick, who redshirted last year, he started a couple of years ago, so this isn't completely new territory for him. Ricky Wagner making the switch from right tackle to left tackle, but he has started, he has played. I think we're all really rooting for Josh Oglesby here, fighting through the injuries, the multiple knee surgeries that he's had. They've tried to be as smart as possible during training camp. We've talked about this, Mike. I'm not looking for a finished product yet. I know there's a lot of hype and a lot of expectations with this football team, but in a first game, there could be some bumps. Last year, they dominated UNLV, and yet it was a 3-point game at the half because of a couple of mistakes that the Rebels were able to capitalize on. So, do we expect Wisconsin to win? Yes. But am I looking to see a finished product on September 1st? No.
It's pretty easy to finish this thought. If so-and-so stays healthy, if Nick Toon and Chris Borland stay healthy.
Yeah, that's where the defense, and I would say Borland of those two if I were to pick one. I would love to see Borland and Taylor. We all would love to see Borland and Taylor together on the field from game one to the final game of the season, whenever that may be. Last year, J.J. Watt was such a great playmaker as a defensive lineman. Chris Borland is a great playmaker as a linebacker. 2 years ago, if there was a turnover, Chris probably had something to do with it. You'd love to see somebody as athletically gifted as he is be able to go wire to wire, and he and Mike Taylor, Kevin Claxton as well, Ethan Armstrong when he comes in, but especially Borland and Taylor because of their mobility and their playmaking ability.
And despite the personnel and the promise of this team, they still should be a little bit angry about the way they played in the Rose Bowl. So if you're looking for momentum, if you want to put the proverbial chip on the shoulder, they have that too.
Peter Kahn's been talking to him early in camp, and he said there is something essentially Wisconsin about feeling like you have something to prove. The taste of the Rose Bowl, he says he hates to admit it, but the way that game turned out prevents any kind of complacency from setting in. So I really like the way Peter phrased it, though. There's something essentially Wisconsin about feeling like you have to prove yourself. As long as this team feels that way across the board, I think it has a chance to do something pretty special.
Should be a fun season, huh?
Can't wait. It's about time, right?
Yeah.
It's about time.
It's time for football.
Yes, it is.
No question about it. For Matt Lepay, I'm Mike Lucas. Thanks for watching Badger Breakdown on UWBadgers.com.